So, welcome back to another kind of training vlog style video. Today was going to be a Seek a Psychology video, but ever since last week's podcast, there's been a huge amount of questions around what I'm going to do with my training next. What am I going to go and do or attempt the 5 minute mile and 500 pound squat again? What am I doing the next few weeks? So, this video is going to clear all that up. The first thing is, as anyone who's listened to the podcast will realize, after doing the event immediately, I was like, look, I'm not going to attempt it again. It was never a thing that I just wanted to do that. Like, the goal itself was just something to train towards, something to kind of structure training around. At the moment, it's not on the cards at all to go and attempt that again. I don't have it in like the next 6 or 12 months of planning to go and do that, but it doesn't mean it mightn't happen at any stage. So in relation to what's going to happen next, my training for the next 3 weeks, so kind of the month following the attempt, is going to be pushing towards a 250 kilo back squat. So I wanted to back squat 250 for a long time. The day we opened the gym in 2016, I wrote it on the wall as like a goal I want to achieve. So we're actually going training in that gym tomorrow, and hopefully it'll be like the first session to push towards 250. 250 as like an arbitrary number is just, there's no reason for it. I just want to do it. The reason I'm pushing for the squat now, I obviously can't do any other training. I can't do power cleans, anything that impacts on my leg. So like my leg lifting up and landing down still causes quite a bit of pain. So all of that kind of training is off the cards at the moment, but squatting is still pretty okay. Pulling, like deadlifting, still kind of hurts it, but squatting is absolutely grand. The other reason besides like that injury that I want to go and push for this now is, in the training leading up to this, my body weight was like 106 to 108. In the kind of tapering into it, I ended up just sitting at around 108 kilos, and that's where I am at the moment. To do 250 is going to be a lot easier at 108 than it will be at like sub 100 kilos. So once I finish training and once I finish the prep for this squat phase, I'm going to drop down to below 100. The reason I want to be below 100 is just like, it just feels better to be a small bit lighter. In terms of like body comp, I'm not too bothered about it. I'm probably in better shape now than I've been in a long time, no matter what the YouTube comments might say. But yeah, that's the plan. Like, while I'm still up at around 108 kilos, I'll go try and get a heavy squat or a PB squat at least. That'll be like the second squat PB of 2020, following the 200 kilo front squat I did in February. And yeah, after that, I'm going to taper back on training, just get back into some work capacity stuff, get back into some actual weightlifting. It's been a few years now since I actually did snatches and clean and jerks. So just get back into a normal kind of training regime. Don't push things quite as hard and drop down to below 100 kilos. In terms of like overall goals and these kind of long-term goals you push towards for a long time, like, it's 5 years now since I've written down somewhere that I wanted to squat 250. What people often think is like, when you set these longer term goals, it's going to be a single linear progression. We're going to just set ourselves in that direction and keep pushing. Like, I've pushed my squat probably 4 separate occasions in those 5 or 6 years since I wrote down that goal. And I've hit PBs on many of the occasions. Certain training cycles I didn't hit PBs. But it's important that like your training accumulates towards like more efficacy with your recovery, more efficacy or better technique, just becoming a more skilled athlete and being more skilled at the movement itself. So even though you mightn't be kind of making direct progression towards that goal, like, there's plenty times in those 5 years where my squat was getting worse. Like, I was losing kilos off my 1RM, but all of the training that I've done accumulatively should just help me to get up to that 250 number. In terms of what the actual sessions are going to look like for the next few weeks, like, you'll be able to see them in these training vlogs. But what is the actual rep scheme going to be? Well, I'm going to keep the volume pretty low. Like, I don't need to gain any capacity, even though it's been about 10 days now since I've trained or squatted at all. I won't have lost any actual capacity in terms of my ability to do squats. It's going to be all threes, twos, and ones. I won't be going back up for even fives realistically. So tomorrow's session is probably going to be threes or twos, depending on that how that feels. I'll then squat on Tuesday or Wednesday next week. Most of the time in between squat sessions, I'll be keeping around 4 or 5 days. So realistically, there's only going to be around 4 sessions before I go for the 1RM again. Now, this isn't saying that if you're in this situation or whatever situation you're in and you're trying to hit a significant PB, like this will be 20 kilos heavier than any weight I've ever squatted before. Granted, my situation is going to be very, very different from a huge amount of other people. So 10 days ago, I squatted 230. It was a very, very easy rep. I actually went for 240 afterwards and barely missed it. To be honest, I think I would have absolutely smashed 240 on the day. So it's not like I'm pushing for an actual 20 kilo PB in 4 weeks. Although the on paper number will be that I'll have gone from a 230 back squat to a 250 back squat. Technically, the last single I will have hit will have been 230. The capacity at like all the training has basically been done. This will just be tapering off, kind of honing the edge. I won't be getting any stronger in these few weeks. Like I'll just be getting a small bit more skilled at heavier reps. If I was to have learned anything from the last squat cycle I did, so say I pushed hard until the start of February, I hit some squat PBs, then I was able to ease back on the squat, and then we just like tapered the squat in for the actual event itself at the start of April. When I look at that and when I look at like what you could have learned from those last squat cycles, it was that I didn't pay enough attention to the singles. So because of the event I was doing and because I was trying to gain work capacity, I was trying to gain kind of higher end capacity. I was doing a lot of 10s, doing a lot of 8s, 6s, 5s. For anyone who would have watched back on like the Instagram stuff I was throwing up or even in the training vlogs, there was a lot of higher volume sessions. Obviously, that was very congruent with the training I was doing for the run, and it worked well to kind of build capacity in my legs. One thing I probably didn't do well enough is converting that over. So we often talk about people spending too long in a strength phase, so they end up doing a month of prep and then 2 months of a strength phase and a week of a taper, whereas it probably should be inverted or even greater in the other direction. I spent almost all of my time in prep, which is good. I just didn't spend enough time in that tapering phase. The advantage of that now though is it allows me to spend a hell of a lot less time in prep. Like I'm essentially doing no prep at all and I'm just going to taper for these few weeks or do a strength phase into a taper for those few weeks. And hopefully I'll gain that ability to handle heavier weights a small bit better. The last thing I will have learned then is that the 240 attempt on the day, so like obviously the day itself was like stress levels were incredibly high, cortisol levels were incredibly high, and it wasn't an optimal day to be hitting squat PBs. There were 1 or 2 things that stuck out for the 240 attempt that I missed. The first thing about the 240 attempt that I missed was the difference in how the bar felt. So there's obviously differences in the level of oscillation or how the bar acts when you unrack it, but the difference between 230 and 240 was drastically different from 220 to 230. To be honest, it was different from like that level of difference is like equivalent for me or how it felt for me going from 230 to 240 and how the bar acts. So like I'm talking about the level of oscillation with the bar. It's a Rogue weightlifting bar. It's very whippy or pretty whippy. That change for me felt like the change between 190 and 220 in how the bar acts. It was significant. Owen actually said it to me on the day. Like he just said, be wary of it. So that's one thing I'm just going to have to be more cognizant of. I'll probably go for 240 or I might go for 240 for a few singles, maybe a week or 10 days out. And that will be to kind of practice that feeling or to just be more cognizant of that feeling and how the bar will influence me. Because when you unrack something that heavy and take a step and the bar is still oscillating, like it does tend to throw you a bit. The final thing then will just be like maintaining aggression the entire time throughout the squat. For me, because I'm slightly taller and my squat mechanics aren't great or I'm not a very skilled squatter, when I sit down, I tend to kind of like almost not put as much effort in on the way down, and then try and suddenly like turn on that intensity as I stand back up, purely because the length of time or the duration of the lift is so long. One thing I did get much better at last cycle was that I maintained intensity, or I maintained like intent as I sat down into the squat. It allowed me to rebound out of the bottom a bit more, allowed me to use whatever the SPD knee sleeves are giving me a bit more, and I think my squats looked better because of it. So hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you want to see more squatting, make sure you do subscribe to the channel. There'll be a training vlog going up this weekend from a session myself and Gurf are going to be doing tomorrow or else on Saturday. So make sure you subscribe to stay tuned for that.